Abhay, we've been meeting regularly online and you've been in LA. Any plans to come back home? Or can
I
you give
was
some gap?
I was just there. I was home.
Or we didn't get to meet. So, anyways, I think online is our way of life. So,
Anyways, exactly. Even if we had to meet, we couldn't have because of, well, now we have Omicron. So Omicron, that's what it's called.
yeah, yep. So, how are
How
things with you? How have the past, 2 years been now?
I'm okay. I did 3 projects through it, so which is very fortunate. One of them is the Disney film came out. This one is coming out now, and my show with Netflix will come out next year. So I'm a lot to be thankful for. But I did have stretches of nothing to do, even with these three.
Hmm.
I had stretches of nothing to do, but then I'm okay. I live in Goa. I have a nice house.
Lovely.
Yeah,
Um,
I have nothing to complain about. If anything, I live such a hermit-like life anyway. I keep myself secluded. I don't really go out. I'm not very social. So for me, life was exactly the way it's always been. 3 projects in 2 years is my norm.
And this is a life that everybody is now seeking. If you've heard of people leaving the workforce, taking retirement, and you've just set an example for us, we should just follow that feeling of nothingness and doing something and being detached.
I mean, it took a world pandemic for it. It didn't take my example. It took a pandemic to set that as an example.
Totally. But now you're doing Velle. So, what's
Yeah.
been your Vella quotient in life? What's your Vella quotient in life? It's such a Punjabi thing, na Velle.
Well, I mean, anybody can be Vela, but the word is Punjabi.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, Punjabi just makes it sound sweet and acceptable, I suppose. Yeah, what is my Vela Panti? I do nothing in between projects. I travel. I mean, I find it hard. I think on a one level, I am Vela because I'm not doing anything. I'm traveling, but for me, travel is fun. So I'm doing something. I'm doing what I like. So in my head, I've never been Vela because I'm always doing what I want to do, what I'd
Totally.
like to do. And but to another person's eye, that might be like you're just enjoying life, doing nothing. I'm discovering myself. That takes hard work, you know.
That is very hard work because sometimes when you don't want to see the man in the mirror and say like, I don't know you. I
And I've
totally get
always been a man in the mirror, so I'm never Vela in that sense.
But it's also part of the movie that's coming. You have your nephew. What is it like working with the third generation and the bacha party? Yeah, what is it like? Is it a different ball game? He said there was no difference between working with Chacha and Papa. It was the same.
He said there was the same. uh, I mean, I've always been the kid in the group, so it's funny being the adult. And I think which is why I get along with him like a friend because I don't see myself as an adult. And I'm not one to really give direction or something or lecture or anything like that. I let the other person find their own path because I think my belief is if you have to let the other person make their mistakes and find themselves. If you keep helping them by the hand, they never really discover who they are. Um, so I've always just been there if they need me, but find your own way first. And I would only pass a comment on something if I felt it was outwardly rude or entitled or privileged and all of those things. Don't make those mistakes. But with Karan, you don't have to do that with him because he's just very polite with everybody. He treats everybody equally. So that's the only thing I would look out for. The acting part of it, the director has to look out on that. He has to work on that. I can't tell him anything for that.
And this is something that you've also done yourself, learned, and by your own mistakes, your experience have been yours. And I just feel this generation actually doesn't have it easy. They have it way tougher because I feel the audience is not forgiving and, the noise around. I actually feel it's tougher for them. What do you feel when you came, before you came on?
There's always something. So when I came, there weren't so many platforms to give me the space and the marketing and the distribution to make the films I wanted to make, which they have now. So while there may be a lot more critics now, everybody seems to, have a voice to criticize. There's a lot more platforms to keep your individuality, which you didn't have in my time so much. It was all about conforming. And even though there is still that element, mainstream is still about conforming to a formula.
Yeah.
There's still other platforms that are loud enough as the mainstream platforms, and there are exploring actors and writers of a different caliber to Bollywood, for example. So you have a choice now. Whereas in my time, which is just 15 years ago, there wasn't a choice. It was either this or nothing.
No wonder if you Google search Abhay Deol, they say the non-conformist. That's the
But they do.
first one. Non-conformist.
I'm glad
Listen,
you said that.
not bad, actually. It's good to be a non, and it's also part of Abhay Deol, films. So, has the process changed over the years since you first formed your production company? Has it changed, and has your method also changed now?
You mean my acting?
And your process of choosing projects, the kind of movies you want to lend yourself, your name to as an actor vis-a-vis the producer. How is it now?
Well, I mean, the desire is still to sort of discover new territory and be original as much as you can. If there was a formula for me, it was about not repeating myself. Yeah. And so it's still difficult, because if something you make is a success, people want, then there's a prototype to, put a number to, and then move forward. But my prototype is always something you kind of haven't explored before. So if you want to replicate what I just did, if you want to make an oil like you're a DFD, then the prototype was don't conform to anything.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't have a number again. So I, fortunately or unfortunately, have put myself there. And so that can't change. I'd say it's fortunate because it's allowed me to constantly explore, constantly push, constantly challenge. What's changed is I'm older and I'm not just as energetic as I used to be. And it's just like, okay, fine. If you want to have an item number, sure, let's do it.
But that's coming down, actually. I just do see the item numbers are actually coming down a lot. Thanks. I think we should thank the OTT and people watching a lot of international content. So now they're sitting and asking, what are we doing?
Well, yeah, you're 20, 25-year-olds who've grown up on the internet all their life is not as enamored by the stars of the 80s and the 90s and the early aughts as those who are in their 30s and the 40s, for example, because they've grown up in a different environment. Technologies kind of push them into, 70 years into the future already.
Yeah.
So, and that is why you're seeing this change, and which is what the older generation in the industry fails to see. There's still a romanticized notion of the stars that are established today, and one must continue to worship them. Because also there's a formula in place. Why reinvent the wheel? But yes, the younger generation is spoiled for choice, and if you want them to come, and that's why the footfalls in Bollywood are also falling. The numbers are falling because people want something more relatable. They're seeing international work. They find it more intriguing, more challenging, more provocative. Bollywood in essence is not provocative. It's about just entertainment alone in the most digestible way possible, because entertainment can be provocative. So that's what's happening now, and it's good, and which is why there's a whole caliber of actor and director and writer coming out of the OTT platforms, which is completely, Bollywood will always be there. There'll always be an audience for it, but Bollywood will become the niche because it is a genre at the end of the day. And it'll be recognized more and more for the genre that it is. And that when people start calling it a genre, we would have moved forward from it.
Absolutely. And there are people like you who are leading the way. So also there's exciting news I read about PEP. Can you tell me a bit about that? I'm very curious.
I can't speak too much about it yet. Whatever's out in the news. It's still in production right now. Yeah, but it'll come around. I'd rather talk about something when we complete it. It's not like I have any censure. I am the executive producer on it, but I don't like talking about something till it's closer to its release, so to speak.
Absolutely, and we've learned that the hard way in the industry. But another thing that I really like is earlier the door was just slightly ajar, and now it's opened internationally for people to get their foot in. So, do you think this also is happier times for the Indian industry than the 2 or 3 actors making it to Hollywood?
There's no talk of diversity in LA about representation and the whatnot, but it's still slow. It's still tough to sort of break. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot more noise. It's still sort of through the gaze of the it's still the white straight male gaze. The women are still exotified and put against a white man. You know, Asian men are still sort of perceived to be nerdy or the sidekick. Uh, it's changing. I'm not saying it's not, but it's slow. You know, I think they still don't have enough people of color to uh, give out these stories about us people of color. That is still, it's unfolding. Let's just put it that way. It's unfolding. And that in itself is going to take its time. But at least it's unfolding, yes. But it's slow.
Also, coming back to Vele, what was the reason for you to come on board and, come on board as producer and also act on it? Did it remind you of the days gone by, school and the rowdy
Well,
gang? And
it's fun, it's light, it's entertaining, and it was intelligently written. You know, my character is out of a writer, and he's been in the industry for 10 years. He's been used and spat out and cynical and bitter, but he doesn't necessarily show it. You can read between the lines. And I mean, that was my addition to the character. He was just very nice in the original script. And I was just like, somebody who, and that's what I found most attractive about him. I was like, look, I'm in the industry and I know what it's like. And then I turned to the right and I said, what about, haven't you gone through this experience? And he's like, yeah. How did you feel about it? And he was like, I felt like this about it. I said, then put that on paper, make it real. It was very easy to sort of make this character, give him a form, an identity, because I'm in the industry and he's from the industry. And that was really exciting because I haven't really played somebody from the industry before.
I'm looking forward to that. And before we wrap up, I was seeing your Insta post. You put up something. This was Shanghai and, Zindagi Milegi Doobara. So who's your favorite? You asked us to pick ours, but who's your favorite? Is it Kabir Devan or T.A. Krishnan? First world versus third world problems.
The T.A. Krishnan character was more of a challenge, to be honest, because I'm not South Indian. And in our country, we don't have a tradition of accent training for actors and the whatnot. So we really had to find a Tamilian writer who I could train under, and we had to formulate a way to learn how to get that accent, because if you're Tamil, you're most likely going to speak English. You won't even speak Hindi. IAS officers get shifted around from one state to another. So they speak the language of the state that they're based in. So technically, he should be speaking Marathi. Krishnan should be. So I think just that research and the setup and the whatnot made him more interesting for me to play. I like Kabir, don't get me wrong. But Kabir was easy, like he's an urban, well, educated, privileged little shit, I can play that without even trying.
He was the most lovable. BPL. I still remember his BPL.
No,
we still use it.
I'm being funny. They were both really well written. It's hard to necessarily pick, but the only reason I'm picking Krishnan is because he was more of a challenge to perform. Kabir was much easier to portray. That's the only reason why. But I love both people. Don't get me wrong.
And there's another one. Ek 40 ki last local and Manorma 6 feet under. Which one?
Fuck, that's a tough one.
You've asked us to choose our favorite.
Oh, I know I shouldn't have.
No.
Okay, I'll just pick the one that would maybe more difficult. I would say the SV. Although the Ekchalis is really fun to play also, don't get me wrong.
Now when you look back at film that you could just do it all over again, if you want.
If I could do it all over again, I do the same thing. Awesome. It made me who I am today, and I'm very happy with who I am today. So all the mistakes, and I made a lot of them, I would do them all over again, because I think if you only learn from our mistakes,
Absolutely.
So if I was a bit too loud, a bit too vocal, a bit too much of a comrade asking for equal rights and democratization, then so be it.
What's been your biggest mistake that you could, something that you could unlearn from the past, since we are now stepping into 2020?
Never unlearn anything. Why would you shoot yourself in the foot? If you've learned something, keep that knowledge, no? Why would you want to unlearn something? There might be a film or two that I wish I didn't do because I could have done without the experience. But we won't get into that.
Okay. Lovely chatting with you. Since it's 10 years of Zindagi Milegi Na Dobara, can we hope for a reunion? What would happen if
Yeah, ask Zoya that. Not,
she's
not
busy with
me.
they're busy with the girls, taking them for a travel?
Exactly. Exactly. There's a Zindagi part 2.
Anyways, what can we look forward to in the new year, Abhay? Lovely chatting with you.
I have one more show with, it's a limited series, 7 episodic with Netflix called Trial by Fire. And that's the next one to come out next year. Yeah.
Limited series are actually fun and a little less, I mean, they're actually, I think that's the new format we should explore.
I'm very fortunate that that's the only thing I've done outside of film is limited series, because I don't know if I'd survive year in, year out doing the same thing. Yeah. I get puckered 3 months into a film, with everyone. So I can imagine 3 years into the same character, like, oh God. Yeah, no, this one was nice. I liked it. I loved working with that director and with Netflix again and Endemol. It was, that's something. I'll talk more about it when it comes out.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. And to Pep, all the very best. And lovely chatting with you.
And you, as always.
And Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.
And
Be
Happy
safe.
New Year
Stay safe.
too. Yes.